This would be the anchor session for the 2017 LCT NLA East. I'm going to get going, even though I know I see people still funneling in, but people have flights to catch and things to do, so we're going to try to stay on point. I want to welcome you all to our closing session, and I am Sarah from LCT, moderator for the panel, and just going to try to keep the dialogue going. I'd like to call attention to the session in the NLA educational program on page 26, where you will find the full bios of our speakers. Feel free to read at your leisure, but we're just going to jump in and get to the heart of the subject matter. One more thing, I'd like to plug Chosen Payments. Credit card processing, there is Jim Luff moonlighting. He works for me, really. He's a cheater. And he is holding down the fort of the Chosen Payments booth. And thank you, Chosen Payments, for your generous endorsement of this session. Attendees will be asked to evaluate the session by email shortly after the conference. You can provide feedback in the LCT app, which is available for iPhones, iPads, and Androids, simply by searching for 2016 LCT East. 2016 LCT East. Find our app, and you can give us feedback that way or the traditional way. And we really want to hear from everybody, the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's what we depend on when we invite speakers back. So if you don't like what Gary Bauer has to say, it happens. Let us know and we'll bong him from all future LCT events.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. But we do. That's a legal term in California, bong.
Can't be legal.
Okay, let's get this started. I'm joined by an esteemed and diverse panel of operators today, and the subject matter is hiring and retaining drivers, employees, and competing, differentiating yourselves in this new gig economy, and really just getting our head around the gig economy. When I asked some operators back in July at the New England event what they thought the gig economy was, they thought it had something to do with sound bites. Gig is a term, in case anyone doesn't know, is a term like gig, like a band, a temporary job, a gig, babysitting, and it's become the new derivative of on-demand. It's working essentially for an app. And after the recession, we all know companies weren't hiring full-time employees, and it became it became hip to find part-time work. And so the rise of on-demand and working and reporting for an app with flex schedules and all the bells and whistles that are being portrayed to come with the freedom of working for an app is having an impact on our ability to find good talent. So it's impacted our ability to recruit. So we're going to address that today. Joining me on the stage is Richard Fertig, and he's with Brilliant Transportation. Alongside Richard is Nicholas Kokas with Brentwood's DET. Dave Sillinger from Empire was supposed to be here. He took ill, so standing in for him is Gary Bauer's Intelligent Transportation out of San Francisco, and Rick Versace Jr. with AAA Airport and Limousines in Florida.
A1A.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't have my glasses.
It's okay.
Richard, let's start with you. We've had conversations on the phone. You have your thoughts and opinions about the subject matter. So let's have you weigh in on what you see happening in the world of gig and how it's impacting chauffeur car.
Sure. Is this working okay? Okay, terrific. Well, look, I think that the rate of innovation that we see in our space and in the world right now has never been greater, right? So like, I was reading on Facebook just the other day that Mark Zuckerberg launched 9 years ago, I mean, that's insane. If you think about the rate of progress that's occurred in 9 years and what we do and Facebook Live and streaming and how that's competing with cable and television and so on. So the time is now to really think about what's going on and what the opportunity set is. And as it relates to hiring, training, and retaining employees, the single largest thing that I've seen as I work with gig people, they tend to be younger, although it's now moving up into middle-aged and even older folks, sort of the flexibility. There's a lot of interest in doing things on your own terms. The single biggest piece of advice that I would offer people is to think about teaching. The people that are interested in the gig sort of economy want flexibility, but even more than flexibility, they really value learning. So if you're educating and teaching and training and giving them skills and benefits that they can't receive elsewhere, that gig may turn into a longer gig, and then a full-time, really valuable employee. So it's time to think about it differently than, say, 5 or 10 years ago, where you would go and you'd train somebody in a very specific role, rinse, repeat, keep doing the same thing and expect like perfection. That tends to be monotonous and boring, and there's not too many gigs that you would want to do time and time again, right? Like, so if you were in a band, you want to play different songs in different venues and different audiences. Same thing with people's jobs. If you're not giving them enough intellectual stimulation and training and opportunity, the gig is over.
So in today's world, the millennials have surpassed the baby boomers in numbers in the workforce. We have a baby boomer here, Rick. Why don't you speak to your perspective as a millennial? I mean, a baby boomer, I'm sorry, a millennial. Speak to your perspective as a millennial and looking through the lens at the chauffeur transportation industry as a whole. Is it an attractive industry for your group? Yes, no, and why?
Sure. So I think I can speak for a lot of businesses in this room and our business specifically, that attracting good people to come work with us and for us is a very difficult thing to do. And it is because, like you just said, the ground transportation industry isn't always the sexiest industry for young people who are fresh out of college, who they see companies like Facebook and companies like Google, and their major was computer science in college. They're trying to use their skills to go work for some tech company or some software company. So when they see a brick and mortar ground transportation company, they may think of it more as kind of like an older industry, and that's not appealing to a lot of people, a lot of millennials that are graduating from college nowadays. So that's why I think this panel is very important. It can be very enlightening to a lot of us, because we talk about a couple of different ways that we're able to attract some of the some millennials who may have in the past looked at our companies as a thing in the past, and kind of attracting them in so that we can start hiring the new talent that's going to lead us into the new industry that our industry is changing on a yearly basis. So I think there's a lot of things we can do to start attracting the new talent that's graduating from college these years.
Okay, so Gary, springboarding off of that, what are some ideas specifically if we're trying to make our industry more appealing? Branding, how we recruit, how we outfit our offices, how we pay people, the hours that they work, cross training. I mean, what are some thoughts?
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think at the end of the day, you've got to keep it fresh and keep it exciting. These people are looking for fast-moving, fast-paced. A lot of client base we deal with is the tech world. So they want to be tied, and you make them an extension of that client. So if you're dealing with a Google world or a Yahoo or a Facebook, make them excited and tied into what they're doing. So make an extension of that company as far as maybe tie them into some of their perks. So some of the campuses they get to go and eat on the campus, or they get to use their gyms. You make it so they feel like they're maybe not able to work at one of these companies, but they have the opportunity to benefit for some of the perks they have. Finding these people these days are differently. It used to be in the newspaper we look for drivers. It's not anymore. It's online. It's Glassdoor. It's all these different sites out there that are online that these people are looking at. So I think it's really the end is looking at being creative on the hours. I mean, we have tech people too, and they want to come in and work at 10:30, and they want to leave at 3:30, and they want to play pool, and they want beer, and they want breakfast, lunch, and dinner fed to them. So it's all the difference of what the expectations of what these people are looking for, and you got to think outside the box. I mean, for years, 27 years of doing this, and being very bricks and mortar, and being, hey, I need you at 8, you're going to leave at 6. It's got to be productivity now. What can you bring to the team? What can you bring to the company versus being set hours, working hard, working smart now is what they're looking at. What's the return on investment? And that's what they're looking for. These kids that come in these days, they want to come in and mix it up. And they want to say, hey, I'm more productive between 10 and 3. But the key is you can't gauge on how long they work anymore. It's what they get done. It's really a difference, the economy of what we used to do in the past. I think that's a big piece of what it is keeping it exciting, keep it fresh, keep it new. If you can tie it into your clients, let them play into that a little bit. And I think that's really important with what we're seeing, what makes a difference.
So, okay, Nick, your turn. What about, what are your thoughts, Nick, on compensation? What are your thoughts on what Richard mentioned, that millennials want to be involved. They want to feel it's just not enough to show up and punch in and do your job. They have questions. They want to be involved in decisions. They want, you know, one of the things that's really remarkable about the Silicon Valley is they're not a bunch of independent entrepreneurs. And that's a good thing, but it's a bad thing because independent entrepreneurs don't always make the greatest group thinkers. They tend to think on their own and direct and kind of hoard information, whereas you go to Silicon Valley and they do these brain dumps and throw ideas on the table and they collaborate. And that's where it's at. So go ahead, Nick, make some comments to that.
Well, first and foremost, we as human beings are creatures of habit. So the question that we all need to answer pertaining to the gig economy is how have our habits, or these new millennials or gigsters, they're sometimes referred to, how are their habits evolved in comparison to more traditional person, whether it's personnel or clients even for that matter, because there's two sides to this story. The studies that I've been researching, and I'm a study-aholic, my wife yells at me every night for spending an hour and a half to 2 hours before bed looking at Silicon Valley data reports. And the gigsters want, the key word that keeps coming up is flexibility, flexibility, flexibility. That's usually the top of the list of all the studies that I have read. Number two is compensation. So it's very interesting to see that flexibility outpaced compensation. Another study that I came across recently is that currently in the gig economy, roughly 43% of gigsters that are now in the, let's call it chauffeur transportation, and are getting involved with companies like TNCs, 46% of those individuals actually have some type of college education or have completed college. Prior to that, I think our industry really had a very low percentage of chauffeurs or office staff that actually had some type of college education when considering working for ground transportation or chauffeured car. So that's a very interesting stat. So what does that mean? Are we a stepping stone to the next level of what they're looking to do? Is this a gap in between while they're looking for another job? So what we need to do now, I believe, as an industry is we have to look at our drivers as almost like a customer now. We have to advertise what benefits we can provide to add to their lifestyle or be conducive to their lifestyle for that matter. So while compensation is at the top of the list, I think we as an industry are positioned actually quite well. There's been a lot of stress over the last 2 or 3 years. Oh my God, what are we gonna do? You know, the TNCs have created this whole gig economy and everybody wants to work for them. Well, we're a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week industry. We have the ability to offer that flexibility just as well as any tech company can offer. So I think in terms of getting these people, yes, we're going to have some type of really good compensation package, but I think we have the ability to advertise that we actually offer the flexibility, the compensation, and the lifestyle that you would want while you're either in a transition period, finding a new career, or perhaps making something more long-term and making a full-time career out of this.
Let's open for discussion.
So, totally in agreement with that. I think the one thing that I would just add is that there's a need to understand what the common vision is and what the purpose is, right? So it's not just flexibility and show up and do whatever, whether it's a chauffeur or a detailer or reservationist, they need to understand that they're part of that experience that your company is elevating the game for, and they need to understand that they may have a very small role in it, but it's critically important, right? So if like the vehicle's not clean or the chauffeur is a college-educated guy, but he has no clue what he's doing, and he's just following the GPS, like that's a failure. And so working with them to understand what it is that the vision is, what the purpose that they satisfy is, how that impacts the client. Because in many cases I've found that what's obvious to perhaps all of us in this room isn't necessarily obvious to a college-educated person. They didn't understand that, well, you know, making that off-color comment to the passenger in the back of the car was inappropriate, or it ruined their day or put them in a bad, you know, frame of mind. We're there to delight, excite, facilitate, and anything that deviates from that sort of is bad. And so it may be obvious to us, but if they don't realize it, you're putting your entire business, your brand, your service, our industry in a potential problem. And so in addition to flexibility, it goes back to what I was saying, education, learning, feeling like you're a part of something, what the purpose is, and your role in that purpose.
So what is a day? So what I'm hearing is that the attraction is the flexibility, the freedom, the buy-in, but I see the problem in being in quality control, because the more flexibility you give someone, you know, you're creating moving parts. So comment, like, what would the day in the life of your services, if you wanted to meet the demands of the changing labor force and give them all this that they want, how do you reboot your brick and mortar? What does it look like? The training and ongoing training has to be completely like, pretty much like the Ritz-Carlton style, I would think, that where you're doing small meetings every day. But what does it look like to change from our traditional to this flex hip company? How do you do that, and what does it look like?
And so it kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier in terms of flexibility, that they don't have to be in the office all day, every day, and the only way to really manage that is to be managing the output of what those individual employees are doing, what they're completing on a daily basis. If they are a sales representative or a customer service representative, you know, I've heard of some companies that go with a model of they have their, you know, sales representatives that they're in charge of going out getting that business. They never really have to come into the office except for, you know, some meetings, strategic meetings throughout the week, and so they get the business, and then it's then their job to manually input all the reservations, or to, you know, be on call to manage the dispatching for, you know, certain groups when they come in. So they're not your typical get in the office at 7 a.m., leave at 3 p.m. employee who's just sitting there waiting for the phone to ring. You know, they're working from home, they're going out making sales calls, they're bringing in business, and when the business is in, then they're the ones who are in charge of managing it, because it kind of works on multi-levels. They're not stuck and tied to an office, and then because they brought in the business themselves and they're managing it themselves, they, you know, feel more responsibility over it. It's theirs, so they tend to put a little bit more emphasis on how well it's going to, you know, how well those chauffeurs are going to perform, or, you know, that particular client's going to be handled, because, you know, it's their baby, so to speak.
Gary, what are your thoughts?
So, a couple of things. Let's put it on the table. It's different today than it was when a lot of us in the room grew up. It was a little more stern when we grew up. We dealt with it a little differently. It's different today. First place is what you're looking for. Today, 10th place is acceptable. There's a ribbon for 10th place. So you're treating people and dealing with people in a different way. And it's reality. It's what we're dealing with today. So it's about praise. It's about rewards. It's about recognition. It's about, we do a daily stand-up in every department. Let them know what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong. They want to be communicated with. It's really important. As much as you got people walking down the phone with their heads on, isolated from the world, they still want to know what they're doing right and wrong. And it's important to them to know that. I mean, but this day and age, not say they don't work hard, because I'll tell you right now, a lot of these companies, when they have a problem, they have a hackathon, and they stay up all night long to fix their problem. So they'll do what it takes. So we do some different things. My guys call it Bauer's Bucks. You can call it what you want to call it. And every time they do something above and beyond, we give them, it's called a Bauer Buck, and you write the manager's name, you write the employee's name and what they did. And every quarterly meeting, so it's instant gratification. And then every quarterly meeting, we take the budget on things they control, like fuel, body damage, wear and tear on the vehicle, things that they control, and whatever they save versus the budget, we give them back. And it's usually $4,000 to $10,000 a quarter, and all those Bauer's Bucks go on a wheel, and we spin it, we pull out their name, and they can spin the wheel and whenever from $20 to $400 in cash. So it's when they get these, it's not waiting for a quarterly meeting to say I did something right. They get something immediately saying you did a great job. It's consistently reminding them of what they're doing right and wrong, rewarding them, and giving back. And I think that's really what's important to them. They want to see that instant gratification of what I do right and wrong. I think it's really important on that touch.
Do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing to hire from Uber driver pools?
I definitely have an opinion on that. There's actually a new company that's come to market based in New York, several hundred millions of dollars with investment backing. And they're going after Uber drivers, and they're doing it in a brilliant way, and it turned a light bulb on in my head, and we're actually considering using the same model. So without saying the company's name, this is what they're doing. TNC drivers aren't necessarily the most happy drivers, or employees, or independent contractors, whatever you want to call them, because it's a big gray area. Obviously, everyone in this room, we should all be employees. In my opinion, there's no such thing as an independent operator, chauffeur. So what they have done is they've marketed to TNC drivers that are currently working for TNCs, and they've listed all of the negatives regarding working for a TNC. And working for them, here would be all the benefits that you would have for working for them if you were to switch over as a TNC. And part of their application process, believe it or not, is for them to bring in their phone, log into their TNC profile, and show them what their customer service rating is. And they have to have a minimum of so many trips. So if this chauffeur that worked for X TNC company comes to them and has 1,000 trips under his belt and has a 4.8 star rating out of 5 stars, they're going to look at them and say, you know what, this is actually a possible good candidate to work for us. But if this driver comes in and he's got 1,000 trips under his belt and he's a 3-star driver, thank you for applying, have a nice day. So it was a creative way. I think it's very creative, and at the same time, you're opening yourself up to a door of people who have never ever in their entire lives considered chauffeuring even as an occupation. So it's very interesting. We've actually expanded our pool of able-bodied people who would now consider chauffeur either as a part-time or full-time occupation. So in my eyes, I look at it as a positive and a way for us to be able to take advantage of.
I'd like to just add one more thing because as a resident of New York City, I know which company that is. And I think the single largest thing that they've done to recruit those people, because they're all employed at like Lyft, Get, Uber, right? There is no loyalty. The client has no loyalty to any one of those companies. The drivers have no loyalty. It's literally just plain vanilla. So like they don't really care. But what this company, which I'll mention the name, Juno, does is they give phantom equity to each of the drivers. So they all believe that somebody's going to come and spend $60-something billion and buy the company. And they all have this little lottery that they think is going to be worth millions of dollars when that company goes public or whatever. But that's what's attracting these drivers to go work for Juno, is like, oh, I've got, a little piece of the pie, which is great. Don't get me wrong. I'm not minimizing it. I just think the piece of the pie is probably like crumbs or even smaller, but that's not the point, it's the illusion. And so if you think you own a piece of the company, however small it may be, chances are you're going to do more and better and smile and not say off comment type thing. So it's really quite interesting, and you know, they've done a really good job. I think I got an email saying they've done now like 4 million rides in New York City in the last, I don't know, 3 months or 6 months since they went to beta. It's amazing.
Speaking of ownership real quick, I mean, another thing we've done lately is putting names on the vehicles. So we put the chauffeur's name on the side of a bus or a shuttle, and it gives them a sense of ownership. I mean, the more you can give ownership to them, the better you're going to be, because they like that.
What do you think of profit sharing?
So for years, I've tried to figure out exactly how to get it done properly. In my prior career in the hedge fund world, we didn't do profit sharing, but we had, well, I guess we did do profit sharing. But it required a certain vesting period. And what I found, in part due to the gig economy, is that vesting period, generally speaking, exceeded the tenure of everybody. So it's sort of like, once again, it's illusionary. And as a result of that, I didn't really find many people to actually care. What I found, I did all sorts of things. I had 401k with matching. I have healthcare benefits. I had the highest pay in the industry. I had gratuities that could rival anybody. And literally, when I tell somebody like Doug or anybody else who's in the room, they're like, so you must have 1 million chauffeurs. And the reality was, that was the single biggest problem we ever had, and no matter what I threw at it, compensation-wise, we couldn't keep them. The flexibility, you know, we've all been there. I have a great plum job at 7 o'clock on Saturday night, 6 hours as directed, blah, 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 best VIP client. It's like, not this Saturday. What do you mean not this Saturday? This is the Saturday the client wants to go, like now, let's go. No, and in fact, I saw it on Facebook. We posted it in one of the groups. It was kind of funny. What I used to do, I got so frustrated with it. I said, you know, in the Facebook group, somebody posted that, like, I don't know, they were a little bit out of balance. They were going to go see their yoga instructor or whatever. That's why they couldn't do the thing. And so I've heard every excuse like that under the sun. And finally, I got to the point where I just said to some of these chauffeurs, I was like, oh, you know, Sarah, I totally get it. It makes all the sense in the world. I tell you what, let's call the client on speakerphone. You explain it to them, because you did such a great job explaining it to me that I'm sure they'll fully understand.
I'm surprised they didn't ask you to move it to the next weekend. Can't you guess the client to move their date?
So the point just being, I think profit sharing makes all the sense in the world. I tried really, really hard. I continue to try hard. It's not quite as easy or as linear. In other industries, like when I was in finance, we generally got it. It made a lot of sense. We understood the numbers. We understood the vesting period. We got paid. Didn't have that success in this industry yet.
So not necessarily profit sharing, but something we've done in the past with our chauffeurs is paying them commissions on different accounts or clients that they may have helped us to get, or kind of, you know, gave us as a lead. If they picked up, you know, so-and-so for Morgan Stanley and took them to the airport and they said they really liked them, they got their business card. If they come in and give it to me or, you know, someone in our company, and, you know, we follow up and we end up securing that account, we'll give them commissions on every trip we do with Morgan Stanley from then forward. And it's just been a great way for them to, like, again, kind of have ownership over that account, over that client. And it makes them feel more involved. It makes them feel like they're not just another cog in the machine, but they actually help to grow the business, and they help to develop that relationship. And it gives them a little bit of financial incentive to go out and, you know, help you develop your business a little bit more. So.
Is there a mark of distinction between a gigster and a millennial? Are there people out there that are in the millennial space that really don't, that just want a gig?
I would think so, 100%. So a gigster, I would say, is your Uber driver or a Lyft driver who wants to wake up at 11 o'clock and turn on their app and work for 3 hours and then turn it off and go to the movies and, you know, not have a career per se. There are definitely, you know, I would say the majority of millennials want an actual career, and that's the difference between a millennial and a gigster. A gigster wants to make a couple bucks, be able to pay their rent and feed their cat at the end of the week. But a millennial wants to have a career. And yes, they do want similar things with the flexibility and the option to, you know, work and get compensated in different ways. But ultimately, I think the main difference is that a millennial wants more.
I think that's really good to know too, because you take the people that you're interviewing for jobs, and if you don't understand that, you could make a mistake trying to appeal to a gigster, and they're just kind of a gypsy worker out there, really with no vision to be part of the company per se. And so that's a good thing to footnote when you're doing your recruiting, to be able to separate, identify those types of people and put them over in this bucket, because not all millennials are like that. The millennials that you want to recruit are the ones that want to be a part of the whole organization.
I agree with that. A gigster could be a 22-year-old, or a gigster could be a 60-year-old. Like, literally, they're doing it for a gig, a temporary thing. The millennials are a little bit more complicated. We're talking about an age bracket and a generation of people, but they're a very important age bracket that we all have to cater to, both from either an employee standpoint and, most importantly, in my opinion, from a customer standpoint, because these are the people within the next 5 to 10 years are going to be the heads of organizations that you're going to need to be selling your services to. So if your services aren't up to the times today, they may not remember you in 5 years or 10 years from now when their purchasing departments are saying, who should we be using for our chauffeur car transportation services?
That's a really good point, and something we've spent a lot of time thinking about and talking about at my organization, which is not only are they going to be the head of the departments, they are going to be the client. And so their behaviors and what they do and how they do it and how they think about the world is the way that we better be thinking about the world, or you're not going to have any clients. So Charles is an employee of mine. He's there with the cameras, and he's a millennial. He's not a gigster. He's been with me for 2 years. For whatever reason, he finds this really super interesting, and I'm really into it too. And so, we have a really good relationship. But the point being, when he and I talk about if and when he's going to order a car to go to the airport or whatever, and we talk about our reservation agents in our business, the last thing that Charles or any of his friends would ever do is contemplate picking up a landline or a cell phone and calling somebody and being put on hold and waiting for the rate and checking for availability. That's foreign. That does not exist today. So 5 years from now, 10 years from now, I don't know who we think is going to be picking up the telephone and calling anybody. And the generation beneath that, my children, if it's not 2 touches, it's not happening. And if it could be 1 touch, they'll get twice the business. So we as business owners need to start thinking about, what is it that we expect of our clients? And is that realistic? And just because it worked before, is that going to continue to work? And so we spend an incredible amount of time thinking about the user experience, before they become clients. What are we asking people to do with us and how? And then you get millennials and or gigsters. And gigsters, by the way, aren't just drivers, right? There are people that do what Charles does, video and editing and all that, but they have 100 different clients and they don't really care who it is, and they could be doing LCT today and they could be doing a wedding tomorrow, and that's a gigster. We went the other route where we have a full-time employee who works with us on marketing and video and so on. One's not better than the other, it's a personal thing. But the point being, we start to think about the user experience, what we ask of our clients before they become, what we ask of our prospective clients in the conversion to a client, and then how do we keep them happy? And that, to your point, is really different today, because these millennials have a different fact pattern of what they do and what they don't do, and we can't ask them to alter because they won't.
And the attention span too. You got to keep them. You got to keep their attention. You keep this shiny object going, or you're gonna lose them. And we've got a lot of for corporate computer stuff that we do, because we wouldn't believe the amount of laptops. How many times you've left your laptop behind on a bus? Every day we're finding laptops, finding cell phones. They were just on it 5 minutes before, and they get off the bus and they don't have it anymore. I don't know about you guys, but I don't sit there and leave my cell phone everywhere I go, but it's that's what you're dealing with. It's that attention span, and they're on to the next thing, and you got to really keep them in tune and intense, because it is. They'll lose track, and they find stuff all the time. Every day we're turning stuff in. So it's one of those things you just got to kind of keep excitement, keep it going for them, keep on track.
So finding the best people, going back to that, what do you need to offer? Let's kind of summarize or prioritize some of the things that we can impart with this group. If they were going back to their offices tomorrow, what should they do from a recruitment and and just hanging out a retainment problem? What should they do tomorrow to reinvigorate the staff they have and to start the recruiting process off on the right foot?
I think you should look at it as more of a marketing campaign instead of just a standardized, old-fashioned recruitment campaign, and advertise the advantages of working for your organization rather than the other options that are out there, example, TNCs. Again, if you're struggling to get, whether it's a chauffeur or someone else in the office, there is a larger pool today. I firmly believe this, and there's a lot of people that disagree with me on this. I firmly believe that there is a larger pool of people that we have now access to that never ever considered chauffeur car even as an occupation, that now do it on a daily basis but are unhappy with it. So what do? How do you entice those people, at least the good people? You got to go out and market. What are the advantages of working for my company over, for example, a TNC? You will be an employee. You have protections. We have workman's compensation. We have incentive plans. Those are the things that you can advertise and market in order to add to your employee staff.
The one challenge that we always came up against, and Gary, you mentioned a little bit earlier about sort of like the shiny metal and keeping their attention span. There's something really intoxicating about the TNC and the app, and like you finish a job and you say you're ready and like you got another one. It's kind of like when you go fishing. If it's like biting all the time, you may not actually catch anything, but it's a great day.
Sounds like a video game.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So like if you're out there and there's nothing, and so the challenge that we found was when we're really, really busy, we don't have enough chauffeurs. And when we're really, really slow, and we're too slow. And for the gigster sort of mindset, that slow is like death and it's not working and I'm not going to stick around for that. And so one of the challenges that we would have, and I don't have a solution yet, but I pose it as a thing to think about, is in that downtime, what can we do to make them better people, better employees, understand the mission more, contribute to our clients, our businesses? If we can solve that, because I don't know, maybe all of you are 24/7 busy with work, but I found myself ebb and flow, and maybe good months, maybe seasons, maybe good days. And so the challenge for me, which the TNCs are fortunate, they don't really have it as much, is, they're instant on, they're instant demand, and they're 24/7. And so somebody who wants like a quick hit or quick fix and a couple bucks, like that's a good place to be. While I think the employees and the benefits and the profit sharing and all of that makes a lot more sense for a career-minded person, that's not necessarily who we're talking about right now.
I think the flexibility of hours and opportunities that they have, I think is important. Sense of ownership, making them feel like they're part of it. I tell you, people interview, maybe not on the driver's side, but on the other side, they all want to know, it's really not much you're going to pay me. What equity do I get? What piece of the pie am I going to get? They all see what's happened with Ubers and Lyfts of the world. Uber's $70-something billion. Uber's offered $6.5 billion. They see that opportunity. They want to know, what piece of the pie do I have? Making them part of the big picture. If he's here with your company, or as I mentioned, with your client, making them part of that big picture, making them feel like they're part of the game. Stability. Let them know there is something here if they want that stability. They are about the gig. At the end of the day, how long can a gig run? If they want someone wants a longer gig, they want to be able to have that stability. Perks. What are my perks? What can I get out of this? Are there little tchotchke things here and there? Is it part of a gym membership I might get? What can I get out of this? Keep it current, keep it fresh. Always in line. It's like a nightclub. How long does a nightclub last before all of a sudden they're passé? You got to keep it fresh, keep it exciting. Make it a video game. They understand video games. So make your technology like a video game. Make it something that's going to make them intrigued, make it fun, make it exciting, and make it something they can play into. So whatever you're using out there, make it exciting, make it fun. And then, you just make them feel part of what they're doing, part of the team. Even though they want to be their own little thing, they still want to be part of a big picture. And it's important to them, I think, at the end of the day.
If I could, Gary mentioned something that I think is really important, is making it part of a video game or giving them like immediate feedback. So we developed some software that we used internally, and it worked really well. But the part that really got us excited and got the team excited was when we had it report back to the employees themselves. So this was a wake-up sort of thing, and people would always say, how come I didn't get that job, and how come I didn't do this, and I didn't do that? And then we started reporting them and say, look, you're number 9. Of course that went to number 1. And so you saw that number 9 player weekly getting email notices as to where they stood, and they went to 8 and 7 and 6, and now everybody's game is up, right? It's like a competition, but it's literally thinking about what data you have, figuring out how to analyze it, and then figuring out how to share it. And if you can do that, I think you'll see everybody improve, because we've seen it, time and time again.
Continuing on that gamification piece, there's a lot of dispatch softwares out there nowadays that do exactly that. So ours specifically, it will, kind of accrue a point system for each one of our chauffeurs, depending on, if they were on time for every single job this week, if they were in the right waiting areas where we need them to be, and they get different amount of points allotted to them depending on if they're doing the correct things, say hanging out at hotels where we see a high volume of trips, or hanging out at airports. So based on that, the points that they accrue, they're then, ranked with all the other drivers. So it gives them a little way to compete with their other chauffeur pool, and it brings it back to game. It makes it, it's their job, but it's also a way for them to kind of, compete with everyone, and it makes it a little bit more interesting for them. And the perks that we were talking about, for our customer service reps, we, on a weekly basis, we have a amount of reservations taken competition. Whoever has the most reservations taken gets like something small, whether it be lunch that day or $50 gift certificate or something like that. But we do it on a weekly basis, just keep it consistent and to keep people, competing against each other within the office. And also, never mind. That's all I got. I was thinking of another one.
Real quick on the lunch. For our office staff, almost every day they get free lunch. Everybody says, wow, it gets expensive, but what's your time away from the office cost? Yeah. If you really think about it, you say, well, these Googles, Yahoos, Cisco's, Facebooks are smart. They're nice giving this away. They're smart. Because instead of someone leaving for an hour and a half to go to lunch and get totally off track from business, they're going and grabbing lunch, going back to their desk, or sitting in a cafeteria, still networking and talking about the business. So it is, basically, for a cost of, $10 or $15 a person, now you've got them kept captive in what they're doing and working forward. It's really important to look at it. Here's something different. Whatever you were to do, online marketing for your chauffeurs or whoever it is, and you put it out there and it opened up as a video game. And you had to get past this level to fill in your name, then you had to get past this level to fill in your, your phone number or your email contact back. Do a little A/B testing, try it out, try something different to see what works. Play with a little bit. You gotta think outside the box, because that's the way they're thinking. They're thinking differently, so you gotta think like they think.
Something a little bit different. How many people out there are offering free transportation for their employees or for their chauffeurs? So something very simple that's obviously very little cost for us to provide, and they would appreciate it if they're going on vacation with their family to get a limo to take them to the airport, or just a car to take them when they're going away for a weekend. Uber, I'm not sure about their chauffeurs or their drivers, I'll say, but their corporate employees, they provide free transportation for them 100% all the time. So just another little perk that we could provide to our employees that maybe some of us haven't thought about before.
And all of this only comes into play if you have the proper technology in place. You have to be able to extract that data and be able to organize it in a way that you can monitor the increases in customer service that your employees are providing. And then at the same time, for the last 3 years, we really haven't had technology to be able to offer that flexibility. I really believe we're at a pivoting point in the last 12 to 18 months in terms of finally having some technology to be able to offer these gigsters or these millennials. For example, we got iCars right here, right? iCars is an ability to add to your current systems and be able to offer that flexibility. If you're not doing on-demand or near-demand, you're not really a 24-hour service. You have to have an employee, you have to create these shifts, these flexible shifts, whether it's a 9 to 5 or a 5 a.m. until 2 p.m. Traditional models don't necessarily work to that effect, but if you're able to meld near-demand and on-demand, you're now able to offer and advertise these flexible shifts that you can offer to a potential employee.
Very good. Looking around the room, does anyone have a question that they'd like to pose to the panel? Yes.
How do you pay these employees?
For us, regarding our chauffeurs, we have a punch-in clock right when they first walk in the door. They punch in and they punch out when their shift's over. They're paid for their time from the moment they walk in the door on an hourly basis.
Anything different?
Well, we paid overtime, and in California we paid double overtime. That's critical if you've got a long-term mindset to not skirt any rules. In California, you're also supposed to be paying for like their cell phones. I mean, you have to make sure that you're above board on everything. We also included, well, not included, it's a discretionary gratuity that would be on top of that. And then we also would do profit sharing and 401k match as well.
So if you're thinking, gigster part-time, maybe I can pay this person more like a 1099 employee. I don't think you can do that. So they still have to be considered employees. They still have to punch in, punch out, and take their breaks. You can probably punch them out on an iPad technology. They don't have to actually come in to an office anymore, right?
We don't have that technology, but I know a competitor in our market where as soon as they log into the tablet, that's their punch-in time.
And to that end, the technology that we use actually takes a GPS stamp. So if they're supposed to be like at the base or at their home, you know that they're not at like the gym.
Geofences.
Well, I would be punching in from the gym. No, I'm just kidding.
Any other questions? Really? Well, I'll put you on the spot, Gary Buffa, because we talked about this, and you said, "Look, I have perks, I have contests. I just can't find people, and I have to turn down jobs because I don't have people to put in the cars. It's very frustrating." So how do we answer to that when there's really a perceived glut on the market for people looking to work? What do you do?
Oh, I thought you were asking the panel.
Well, go ahead.
Yes, California is a terrible market. We're having a tough time, as Gary knows and Sam knows. Actually, I'd like to hear from Sam on this because I need some guys down your way and some girls, a lot of chauffeurs. But before I answer, I do want to say everyone that missed this session has missed out on the entire show because you guys have done a phenomenal job. There's so much information.
Thank you.
Really, it's a wealth of information, and the ideas going back and forth are incredible. And I saw Gary writing down a bunch of stuff, so he was even thinking as we were going, as we all were out here. So one of the things that in our area that we're trying to do locally, north of San Francisco, is radio. We're going after radio. Nothing's working. So we're going to try to do radio advertising and try to hopefully attract somebody that's in a job that they don't like, that wants to try something new. We've done the Glassdoor. Glassdoor's kind of burned out, as we all know. Craigslist is done. Craigslist was a perfect thing for us in San Francisco, but that's burned out 10 years ago. Newspaper, as Gary said, is done. It's hard. It's difficult.
Can you use social media to?
Yeah, definitely.
We've done Facebook. We've done Twitter. We've tried it all. So I don't know. Keep the brains going because we're learning out here.
The one thing that I would just comment, because we do a lot of work, we had the same issue that everybody here has, which is we have clients and we can't fulfill. And there's nothing worse than saying, oh, I have the vehicle and I'm making the vehicle payment and the insurance payment and the vehicle's clean and I'm paying the detailer and I've got all that, but I don't have the chauffeur, so I can't do it. Or when we call affiliates all over the world, it's the same thing. I can't tell you how many times we hear, we got the vehicle, let me see if I can get you the chauffeur. One of the things that we had some success with, and it's not perfect, but it's sort of taking a page out of the TNC book, instead of us having shifts and people that work days and not days, we moved to a more auction system. So we put the job out, and anybody that's available and interested, first one gets it. Now, it only works if they're all of the same quality and they all have the same standards, CDL licenses or technology licenses. But that same sort of mentality that gets a gigster to accept the job can help in this scenario, because I don't want to call you and hear that you're going to the yoga guy and Gary's a little busy, he's got a date or whatever's going on, right? I don't care about the excuses. I just want fulfillment. And so if we put it out to an auction and people have to meet a certain criteria, whether they've got the licensing or they've been with the company long enough or whatever, now all of a sudden anybody who complains like, well, I only got 13 hours this week. Well, you know why? You didn't respond, right? So like it's a great equalizer.
One thing we've done, and it's kind of an old concept, and I'm sure plenty of you have implemented in your business in the past, is encouraging our chauffeurs to send us in referrals. You know, other chauffeur referrals. They all know each other. They all hang out down at the airport all day long. So you tell them, you know, if you bring in a guy after the first 2 weeks that he's with us, we'll give you a $100 bonus. After 6 months, we'll give you, you know, a $500 bonus or $1,000 bonus. What is it worth it to you to have a good chauffeur come start working with you and stay working with you for a long time? But like you're saying, Gary, the radio, I think that's a great idea because I hear Uber and Lyft advertising on the radio constantly.
Yeah.
And they, you know, their main marketing budget is geared towards getting drivers. They need, you know, all the drivers they can get. So I don't think it's a bad idea to mimic what they're doing. You know, they are doing a lot of things right, as much as we hate to say it. So it's not a bad idea to, you know, do some of the things.
One thing that we did, it was kind of sneaky, is we utilized Facebook, and what we did is we did a targeted marketing campaign for chauffeurs, and we targeted people who liked Uber or Uber drivers or Uber chauffeurs. So those marketing campaigns only were visible by people who liked Uber. And within, I think, 48 hours, we received 13 requests for employment by TNC drivers, you know, and of those, maybe 2 were good, the rest were bad. They're probably back on the TNC road killing people, but yeah, I mean, that's what we did, you know. Again, there's that whole new pool that we were trying to, you know, go after, and so that was one way for us to be able to target those particular drivers.
You know, and you mentioned there's still competition between the gigsters, so if you can ever make it a game, make it fun for them, make it challenging, first one to get there, you know, it's a point system, whatever you want to do, they're still in on that. So I mean, it's still an avenue to play, so.
We have a question?
Yes, I have a question. This is exciting. So I have a point that I'd like to raise that I'm curious to see if anyone's doing anything like this. I've used this some in my background before coming to this company, and really here, I really haven't even used it much. Been focused on some other things, but something that we can do, I think we're all in agreement that chauffeurs can come from different backgrounds. Some of them may already be employed, they may be unemployed. Ages don't matter, ethnicities don't matter. It's really a unique role. And so we can pull from anybody with virtually any kind of experience. So we all have relationships with hotels and different organizations in our market that are actually close in proximity to us. We all have relationships with HR managers, coordinators, hiring managers, people that have actually put out their own posts and actually have brought in people, interviewed them, liked them, but didn't fit their company or, you know, like you're saying, the culture or whatever else. But they'd be good for other organizations. So that's a resource, a partner that we have. They're a client, but now they're a partner that we can actually pull from their candidate pool. They've already done the pre-screen for us. So they already know, and it helps them become more intimate with our business and work with us. So I think that is something that we could definitely leverage, and I say that to say I haven't even used that much in this role with this organization, but that's in my plans for this year to do more of. But I would see that for us in our industry to actually be more useful than in other industries that are trying to pull from direct competitors, because we don't have direct competitors. So, except for if we're going to go after other operators, candidates.
I think it's also really good to define, define the benefits and the value of being a chauffeur against what the gig economy has to offer, because for whatever reason, it's just hip to talk about the gig economy and Uber and TNCs. But at the end of the day, I mean, I had a meeting with 20 Uber drivers in February. They wanted me to see their 1099s, and they were freaking out because, I mean, Uber 1099s, even the Uber fee. I mean, you're taxed on the whole trip. But anyway, they were laying out what they're really not making, and it's really amazing that you know, from a branding and marketing standpoint, it sounds really great to be part of the gig economy, but you're owned by an app. Your life isn't really yours. And at the end of the day, you're really on your own with no umbrellas of financial support whatsoever. And are you really making that much money to, you know, in contrast to your freedoms, really? And so it would behoove us as an industry to really define, you know, the benefits of being a chauffeur and sex it up, you know, make our world the place you want to go to, and you know, instead of, you know, the other way around.
And going back to what we were saying about making your initiative for getting chauffeurs and other employees more of a marketing initiative than just a hiring, you know, it's putting out an ad on Craigslist. Get creative with your ads that you're posting. Post something on Facebook that says, you know, I'm an Uber driver, I made $500 today, and then, you know, minus gas, 60 bucks, minus my wheels for the month, you know, $120, minus this, and bottom leave, you know, $25 or something like that. And underneath that, apply for a job at A1A Limo today. Like, I don't mean to get negative after the you know, election and everything is passed. We should all this negative PR. We don't need any more of that.
That's a really good point, though. That's what Uber does. They do marketing. They do really cool, hip ads. And we can do the exact same thing. We have a lot more to offer.
See a little spreadsheet, just a little spreadsheet. Here's what, you know, you made, minus all those expenses, and here's what we pay you. I mean, you don't have to worry about owning your own car if you get in an accident. I mean, probably they don't look at any of that. They don't look at the cost, what it's going to cost for an accident or a repair or whatever else. It's always just, hey, I made $40,000.
Yeah. I'll just go back to a point I made a little bit earlier, which is the user experience. Applying for a job and going through the interviews and doing all that stuff is a pain in the butt, right? And so, like, there's a cost to switching, and people don't really want to do that, especially if they're not sure what they're going to get at Brilliant or A1A or whatever, right? Like, oh, this is good enough. There's lethargy. So think about what it is that you do. And I know in my own organization, pointing fingers at us internally, we'd have a full day of interviews set up, and then we'd be running late, and we'd ask a candidate to wait 5 minutes or 10 minutes, or somebody wouldn't come in on time. I mean, that's nonsense, right? If you're doing marketing and you're spending money and you're doing all this, and there's the client and you want to grow your business, like, what are you asking them to do? How can you make it better? How can you make it quicker? How can you make the decision quicker and better? Start to think again about the user experience before they become employees.
I want to thank you all for hanging in there with us, and we hope we gave you something to think about and some takeaway value, and we will see everyone in Las Vegas. We'll be back here next year. So have a safe trip home.